The wind was wild that night, howling across the open fields of the valley like 1,000 restless spirits. The old wooden fences creaked, and the dry grass bowed under the touch of the cold breeze. It was the kind of night that made even the stars hide behind thick clouds. The moon was nowhere to be seen, and the sky burned with flashes of red and orange. Strange lights that did not belong to any storm Eleanor had ever seen. She stood outside her small farmhouse, holding a dim lantern in her trembling hand, staring toward the horizon. The ground shook beneath her bare feet. For a moment she thought it was thunder. But the sound that followed wasn't thunder. It was a roar, deep and ancient, so powerful that it made the air itself vibrate. Eleanor's heart began to race. She was only 19, a simple farm girl living alone since her father had passed away 2 years ago. Her days were usually calm, feeding chickens, milking cows, fixing fences. But tonight, something was very wrong. The animals were restless. The horses neighed, the dog barked wildly, and the cows huddled together as if hiding from a great danger. Above her, the red glow grew brighter until the entire sky seemed to be on fire. Then, with a blinding flash of light, something massive fell from the heavens. It tore through the clouds like a comet, leaving behind a long burning trail before disappearing into the forest beyond the hill. The earth shook again, and a wave of hot air brushed across her face. For a long moment, Eleanor just stood there, frozen. Her heart pounded in her ears. Every instinct told her to go inside, to lock the door and wait for morning. But curiosity, and something deeper, something she couldn't explain, pulled her forward. She grabbed her lantern tighter and began walking toward the forest. The night was dark, the path uneven, and every sound felt louder than usual. The snap of a branch, the whisper of the wind, the distant cry of an owl. Her mind raced with questions. What had fallen from the sky? Was it a meteor? Or maybe one of those new military crafts people in the city talked about? But deep inside, she knew it wasn't something human. When she reached the edge of the forest, a faint smell of smoke and something metallic filled the air. The trees were broken, branches scattered everywhere. She followed the marks on the ground, huge claw-like grooves that dug deep into the soil. The light of her lantern flickered, struggling against the darkness. Then she saw it. In the middle of a clearing, surrounded by burned trees and glowing embers, lay a creature so magnificent that her knees nearly gave way. It was a dragon, or what was left of one. Its silver scales were cracked and stained with black blood. Its massive wings twitched weakly, torn and burned. Each breath it took made the ground tremble slightly. Eleanor had heard tales of dragons since childhood, but she never believed they were real. Yet here it was right in front of her, dying. She took a slow step forward, her breath catching in her throat. The dragon's eyes opened, glowing like 2 blue suns fading into dusk. They met hers, and in that instant, she felt something inside her mind. A voice, soft and broken, echoing without words. "Please, don't be afraid." Eleanor dropped her lantern, and it rolled to the ground, the flame flickering wildly. She couldn't move. The dragon's voice wasn't coming from its mouth. It was inside her head. "My time is ending," the voice said. "I must ask you a favor." Her lips trembled. "A favor?" she whispered, almost too quietly to hear herself. The dragon shifted slightly, and from beneath one of its great wings, something small rolled toward her. It was an egg, glowing faintly blue, its surface smooth like glass but warm to the touch. The dragon looked at it with eyes full of sorrow. "My child," the voice said. "Protect my child." Eleanor knelt down, gently picking up the egg. It pulsed softly in her hands, like it had a heartbeat. I don't understand," she said. "Why me?" The dragon exhaled slowly, smoke rising from its nostrils. "Because you still have kindness in your heart. The stars, they have chosen you." A tear slid down Eleanor's cheek. The creature looked so powerful, yet so helpless. A being from another world, dying on her land. "I'll take care of it," she whispered. "I promise." The dragon's eyes softened. "Thank you, little one." Then the light in its eyes began to fade. A low hum filled the air as silver dust started to rise from its body, scattering like glowing ash into the wind. The massive wings folded one last time, and the great creature became still. The forest fell silent again. No wind, no sound, just the faint glow of the egg in Eleanor's hands. She felt its warmth spreading through her palms, reaching her heart. Eleanor stood there for a long time, watching the stars reappear in the sky. The red glow was gone now, replaced by calm darkness. It almost felt peaceful except for one thing. From far away, deep above the clouds, a faint light flickered again. It wasn't a star. It was moving slow, deliberate, as if watching her. She shivered, clutching the egg closer to her chest. Something told her that whatever had just begun tonight was far from over. The dying dragon's final words echoed in her mind again and again. "Protect my child." And as she walked back toward her farmhouse, unaware of the eyes that followed her from the sky, the future of entire worlds quietly shifted in her hands. The night after the dragon's death was quiet, almost too quiet. The valley that usually echoed with the sound of night insects was silent, as if nature itself was holding its breath. Eleanor walked slowly toward her barn, the glowing egg wrapped in her old wool blanket. She didn't know why she had taken it. Maybe because of the promise she made to that dying creature, or maybe because something deep inside her heart told her it was the right thing to do. The egg pulsed softly in her arms, each throb warm like a heartbeat, and every pulse seemed to whisper that it was alive. She placed it gently inside a wooden box filled with hay and sat beside it, staring at its soft blue glow in the darkness. All night she couldn't sleep. She tried to tell herself it was all a dream, that dragons weren't real, that she hadn't seen one die right in front of her. But every time she looked toward the barn, the faint light shining through the cracks in the wood reminded her that the impossible had truly happened. By morning, her mind was heavy with questions. Should she tell someone? The townspeople would call her crazy. Or worse, the military might come and take the egg away. No, she couldn't let that happen. Whatever this was, she had made a promise. The next day passed slowly. Eleanor went about her chores, feeding the chickens, cleaning the stables, but her thoughts never left the barn. Each time she passed by, she felt the air around it hum softly, like a gentle vibration she could sense but not hear. When the sun set again, the strange energy in the air grew stronger. She lit a small lantern and went inside. The egg was glowing brighter now, its surface covered in small cracks that shimmered like lightning trapped beneath glass. Eleanor's breath caught in her throat. She knelt beside it and reached out a trembling hand. The moment her fingers touched it, the egg shook violently, and a soft sound, like a chirp, came from inside. "Easy now," she whispered, her voice shaking. "You're okay." Then, before her eyes, the shell split open with a bright flash of blue light. She covered her face from the burst of warmth that followed. When she looked again, her heart nearly stopped. In the hay lay a tiny creature, no bigger than a cat, its scales glimmering like moonlight. Two small wings folded at its sides, and a thin tail curled around its body. It blinked up at her with bright blue eyes that looked far too intelligent for something so young. For a moment, they just stared at each other. A girl and a newborn dragon. The baby sneezed, a small puff of blue smoke escaping from its nose, and Eleanor couldn't help but laugh. You're beautiful," she whispered. Carefully, she lifted it from the hay. It was surprisingly warm and light. The creature made a soft humming sound, resting its head against her arm as if it trusted her completely. Eleanor smiled weakly, still not believing what she was holding. "I guess I'm your mom now, huh?" she said softly. Days passed, and the baby dragon began to grow fast. Within a week, it was the size of a small dog. It followed Eleanor everywhere, to the fields, to the well, even to the kitchen door where it would peek in curiously while she cooked. She named it Aru, after an old story her father used to tell about a star that fell to earth and became a guardian spirit. Aru seemed to understand her words, responding with gentle sounds and tilts of its head. Sometimes, when Eleanor sang while working, Aru would hum along in a low, sweet tone that made her smile. But strange things started happening around the farm. One night, the radio in her house turned on by itself, whispering in a language she had never heard before. Metallic and rhythmic, like machine code. Her phone lost all signals. The animals acted nervous whenever Aru was near, yet none of them dared to attack or even approach it. The air around the barn sometimes shimmered faintly, like invisible heat waves, and Eleanor began to feel that the little dragon carried more than just beauty. It carried power. One evening, while Eleanor was milking the cows, she noticed Aru sitting near the door, staring at the sunset. Its blue eyes reflected the light in strange patterns, symbols, almost like writing. When she walked closer, the dragon turned to her, and for a moment, she thought she heard something. Not through her ears, but in her mind. "Mother, safe." She froze. Her heart skipped a beat. "Did you say something?" she whispered. The dragon tilted its head again, blinking innocently, then let out a small chirp as if pretending nothing happened. Eleanor laughed nervously, shaking her head. "I really need sleep," she muttered. That night, the sky turned strange again. Clouds formed quickly, swirling into a dark spiral above the valley. The radio in her kitchen came alive once more, this time speaking words she could almost understand. Fragments like "signal located," "Emperor," "air." Eleanor rushed outside, her heart racing. Aru stood in the yard, wings half spread, staring at the sky. Lightning flashed, not white, but gold. And then she saw them, small lights, far above the clouds, moving in formation. At first, she thought they were stars. But stars don't move like that, slow, deliberate, hunting. She felt her stomach twist in fear. She looked down at Aru, who now glowed faintly, the blue light from its body pulsing faster. The baby dragon turned to her and made a soft sound, almost like a warning. Eleanor knelt beside it, wrapping her arms around its warm body. "It's okay," she whispered, though her voice trembled. "I'm here. You're safe with me." But deep down, she knew something had changed. Whatever had fallen from the sky a week ago wasn't forgotten. And someone, somewhere, had just found its trail again. Morning came, but the fear of the previous night did not fade. The valley was calm again, yet the sky looked different, too empty, too quiet. Eleanor barely slept. Her eyes were heavy, her heart heavier. She had seen something in the clouds that no normal person could explain. Lights that moved in perfect order, like a fleet searching for something. Every time she closed her eyes, she remembered the voice on the radio repeating the same words. "Signal located. Emperor. Air." It made no sense, and yet deep inside, she feared it was connected to the small creature sleeping peacefully in her barn. Aru, the baby dragon, was growing fast. Its wings were now strong enough to stretch halfway across the barn. When it looked at her, its eyes shone brighter, full of intelligence and emotion. Eleanor could feel that it understood more than it showed. That morning, as she poured milk into a bowl, Aru sat quietly watching her, its head tilted slightly. It looked almost worried. "What is it, Aru?" she asked softly. The dragon blinked once, then turned its gaze toward the sky. For a moment, Eleanor thought she saw a faint reflection, a shimmer, as if something invisible passed above her farm. A cold chill ran down her spine. She tried to shake it off, but her instincts screamed that something was coming. By noon, the peace shattered. It began with a low hum that grew louder every second. The ground trembled slightly, and the chickens started running in circles, panicking. Eleanor ran outside, squinting at the horizon, and her heart nearly stopped. Several dark shapes were descending through the clouds, moving with terrifying precision. They weren't airplanes. They were too quiet, too smooth, their bodies glowing faintly with blue light. The ships landed on the far side of her field, sending up clouds of dust. The noise of metal echoed across the valley. Eleanor hid behind the fence, her breath shallow. The ship doors opened, and figures stepped out. Tall men and women in black armor, their helmets reflecting the sunlight. They moved like soldiers, perfectly in sync. Strange symbols glowed on their suits, and each carried a weapon she had never seen before. One of them held a small handheld scanner that beeped steadily, pointing toward the barn. Eleanor's mind raced. They were looking for something, or someone. She knew immediately what it was. Her heart pounded so hard she could hear it in her ears. She needed to protect Aru. She ran quietly toward the barn, trying not to make noise, but before she could reach the door, she heard a commanding voice behind her. "Stop where you are." Eleanor froze. She turned slowly to see a soldier aiming a weapon at her. His visor was dark, hiding his eyes, but his voice was calm and sharp. "We're from the Imperial Search Division. There was an energy signature recorded in this area. You live alone." Eleanor nodded nervously. "Yes, just me." The soldier looked around, scanning the barn. "There was a crash reported 7 days ago. Something large came down here. Did you see or hear anything unusual?" Eleanor swallowed hard, trying to keep her voice steady. "No, sir. I didn't see anything. Just a storm that night." The man stared at her for a moment, then looked at his scanner again. The device beeped faster. The signal was coming from inside the barn. He turned to his team and said, "It's in there." Eleanor's heart sank. "Please wait," she said, stepping in front of the door. "There's nothing dangerous inside. Just animals." "Step aside, miss," the soldier ordered, raising his hand. Before he could take another step, the air around them changed. A strange vibration filled the ground. A hum that grew louder and deeper, almost like a growl. The soldiers stopped, glancing around. From inside the barn came a bright blue light that burst through the cracks in the wood. Eleanor turned just as the roof exploded upward, sending wood and dust flying into the sky. Out of the smoke, Aru rose, no longer small. Its wings spread wide, glowing with powerful energy. Its eyes burned gold. The soldiers raised their weapons, shouting orders. "Target locked. Open fire." Blinding beams of light shot toward the dragon. But before they could hit, the air shimmered. Every bullet, every beam stopped midair, frozen like insects trapped in glass. Eleanor stared in shock as the glowing dragon let out a deep, angry roar that shook the ground. The soldiers stumbled backward. The light in Aru's eyes grew brighter, and with a single flap of its wings, a wave of energy knocked the armored men off their feet. Eleanor covered her ears, the noise deafening. The air smelled like burnt metal. When she looked up, she saw Aru hovering above her, eyes glowing fiercely. The young dragon spoke, not with its mouth, but in her mind, the same way the mother dragon had. "No one hurts my mother." The soldiers scrambled to their ships, shouting into their radios. "Command! We've found it! The air is alive!" Aru roared again, sending them running. Their ships lifted off quickly, disappearing into the clouds. The valley fell silent once more, though the air still hummed with leftover energy. Eleanor stood trembling, watching as Aru slowly landed beside her. The dragon looked at her with guilt in its eyes, lowering its head. She reached out, touching its warm scales. "It's okay," she whispered. "You protected us." The dragon let out a low sound, almost like a sigh, but Eleanor knew that this peace wouldn't last. Those soldiers would return, and next time they wouldn't come alone. She looked up at the empty sky, where the ships had vanished, and felt a wave of dread. Far above the clouds, unseen by human eyes, a massive fleet began to move. Thousands of ships glowed faintly against the darkness of space, forming the shape of a great imperial emblem. The emperor himself had received the signal. The lost child of the Dragon Queen was alive, and the hunt had just begun. That night, the valley was unusually still. The moon hung low, pale and fragile in the sky, and a cold wind whispered through the trees as if carrying secrets from far away. Eleanor sat on the wooden floor of her barn, Aru curled beside her, its small body glowing faintly blue. The baby dragon's eyes flickered with a strange light, and Eleanor felt a quiet warmth radiate from it, a presence she couldn't explain. She ran her hand along its scales, her mind racing. The soldier's arrival earlier that day had shaken her to the core. What exactly was this creature? Why had the Emperor's forces come after it? And why did it seem to understand so much? Eleanor felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her like a mountain. As she held Aru closer, the dragon lifted its head and gazed into her eyes. Suddenly, Eleanor felt a vibration in her mind, soft at first, then stronger. Her heart thudded in surprise. This was not the usual chirps or hums that Aru made. It was something different, almost like a memory reaching out to her. Images flashed before her eyes, bright, swirling visions she could not control. She saw a massive dragon soaring across the stars, wings glimmering like molten silver. Its scales reflected the colors of countless worlds, and its eyes burned with wisdom and sorrow. This was not just any dragon. It was regal, majestic, the Dragon Queen herself, the mother who had entrusted her baby to Eleanor. The vision shifted, showing the Dragon Queen fighting against ships that outnumbered her 1,000 to 1. Explosions lit the sky, fire spreading across alien fleets. She was powerful, but even her strength had limits. Eleanor saw her mother's final act, a desperate plan to save her child. The queen placed a glowing orb inside the egg, sealing within it a power that could change the fate of the galaxy. Then, with a final, sorrowful gaze, she fell from the sky. Eleanor gasped, tears filling her eyes. This was why the soldiers had come. The Emperor wanted the dragon's heart, the power that the queen had hidden in Aru. Aru's small body trembled against her chest, its wings fluttering as if reacting to the memories. The dragon spoke again, in the soft, mental voice that had become familiar to Eleanor. Mother, Queen, danger, coming. Eleanor held the baby tighter. I understand now, she whispered, her voice barely audible. You are not just a dragon. You are the last hope. If the Emperor finds you, he could destroy everything. The visions continued, showing the Emperor himself, a tall man draped in dark armor, his eyes cold and cruel. He sat on a massive throne aboard a command ship, surrounded by officers who bowed to him. In his hand, he held a crystal that pulsed with the same golden energy as Aru's scales. The Emperor's ambition was terrifying. He wanted to control the dragon's heart and bend the galaxy to his will. Eleanor felt a chill run down her spine. The soldiers who had come to her farm earlier were just scouts. The true threat was yet to arrive. But as the visions faded, Eleanor also saw something else, hope. She saw the Dragon Queen smile as she entrusted her child to someone pure of heart, someone willing to protect what was innocent and good. That someone was Eleanor herself. The baby dragon wasn't alone. Together, they could face the coming danger. Eleanor wiped her tears and looked down at Aru, determination hardening in her chest. We have to be ready, she whispered. They will come back. But I won't let them take you. Aru made a soft chirping sound, nuzzling her cheek. The little dragon's wings glowed brighter now, pulsing with energy that seemed to match Eleanor's heartbeat. Somehow, she could feel it, a connection, stronger than anything she had ever experienced. She realized that Aru was not just a creature to protect. It was a guide, a partner, a beacon of hope. If they survived, the world might witness something extraordinary, the courage of a human and the power of a dragon combined. For the first time that night, Eleanor allowed herself to hope. She thought of the simple life she had once lived, caring for animals, tending fields, and living quietly. That life was gone. In its place was a new destiny, one filled with danger, adventure, and a chance to protect something far greater than herself. She would have to be brave, clever, and relentless. Outside the barn, the wind shifted, carrying a faint metallic hum, distant, but unmistakable. Eleanor froze, her eyes widening. The Emperor's fleet was moving. The soldiers who had fled earlier would not return alone. They would come in force, seeking the dragon's heart and willing to destroy anything in their path. Eleanor looked down at Aru, whose small body shivered but whose eyes burned with determination. Together, she whispered, we will face them together. The night deepened, and the barn glowed softly with the light of Aru's scales. Eleanor sat with the baby dragon in her arms, listening to the distant hum that reminded her of the approaching danger. In her mind, the Dragon Queen's final message echoed, protect my child, protect hope. It was a simple command, yet it carried the weight of a galaxy's future. Eleanor knew that the coming days would test her courage like never before. But one thing was certain: she would not fail. The quiet of the valley was broken only by the soft whisper of the wind through the trees and the faint pulse of light from Eru. Somewhere far above, unseen by human eyes, the Emperor's fleet prepared to descend. The chase had begun, and the destiny of the last dragon heir rested entirely in the hands of a young farm girl. The next morning, Eleanor woke to a strange silence. The usual chirping of birds and rustling of leaves were gone. The air felt heavy, charged with electricity, and the faint glow from Eru's scales pulsed faster than usual. Eleanor's heart raced as she stepped outside the barn. The valley looked calm at first, but far above, the sky was moving. She squinted and gasped. Hundreds, no thousands, of ships glimmered in the distance, like stars descending from the heavens. They were massive, each one larger than any building she had ever seen, lined with sharp edges that cut through the clouds. A chill ran down her spine as she realized the truth. The Emperor's fleet had arrived. Every ship gleamed with cold, metallic light, and the ground beneath her feet trembled faintly as if warning her of the power above. Eleanor ran back to the barn, scooping up Eru into her arms. The baby dragon had grown overnight, its wings now strong and iridescent, capable of flapping powerfully. Its blue eyes glowed brighter than ever, and for the first time, Eleanor noticed a golden shimmer along its scales, a sign of the dragon heart's power awakening. Eru chirped softly, nuzzling her shoulder, but the glow in its eyes carried determination, not fear. Eleanor felt a shiver of hope mixed with dread. They were outnumbered, but somehow, she knew that Eru had a power far beyond what these ships could understand. The first fleet signal came moments later. A loud, booming voice echoed across the valley, amplified by some technology Eleanor could barely comprehend. "You have one chance, human," the voice said. It was the Emperor himself. "Return the dragon heir, or your world will burn. Every life here is yours to lose." The sound vibrated through the trees, shaking the very air. Eleanor's hands tightened around Eru. She swallowed her fear. "We're not giving you the baby," she whispered, almost to herself. The Emperor's ships descended slowly, spreading across the valley like a dark cloud. Light beams scanned the ground, searching for them. Eleanor ducked behind a stack of hay and looked at Eru. The baby dragon's wings flared, glowing like molten silver. Eleanor felt the connection between them strengthen. Somehow she could feel its thoughts. "I am ready, mother. We fight together." With a deep breath, Eleanor climbed onto a wooden crate. She held Eru out in front of her as the dragon stretched its wings. Then, with a roar that echoed across the valley and into the sky, Eru leaped into the air. Its wings carried them upward, higher than the trees, and as they rose, golden energy radiated from its body. The first shots from the fleet struck the dragon, but they melted midair, harmlessly falling into the dirt below. Eleanor gasped. The dragon heart's power was real, and it was defending them. From above, thousands of ships opened fire. Lasers streaked across the sky, turning the clouds into glowing streaks of light. Eru dove and twisted, dodging with incredible speed, letting loose bursts of energy from its mouth. The beams of blue fire melted the fleet's outer hulls. Eleanor clung tightly, her heart in her throat. The valley below was quiet now, abandoned by animals hiding from the chaos, leaving only the golden light and the sound of wind and fire. Suddenly, one massive ship broke formation, heading straight for them. Eleanor looked up in terror as it fired a concentrated beam. Eru's eyes glowed gold, wings flaring wider. The beam met the energy around Eru and shattered into sparks, leaving the ship unharmed. Then, in one powerful motion, Eru shot forward, striking the command ship in the center. The impact sent a wave of energy across the sky, scattering the smaller ships and creating a blinding flash that turned night into day for a brief moment. Eleanor held on as the force pressed her back, wind whipping her hair around like a storm. When the light faded, the fleet had changed. Ships were retreating, breaking formation, and the air was filled with distant, panicked alarms. Eleanor could see them. The soldiers she had seen before, scrambling, their scanners glowing red as they tried to track the dragon air. But none of their weapons could reach Aru. The baby dragon landed softly beside Eleanor, wings folding gently. Its chest glowed faintly blue, calm now, but Eleanor knew it had only shown a fraction of its true power. She knelt down and hugged Aru tightly. "You did it," she whispered. The dragon nuzzled her, letting out a soft, musical hum. But Eleanor knew this was only the beginning. The Emperor had sent his fleet, not to scout, but to claim the dragon heart. He would return larger, stronger, and more determined than ever. As the sun began to rise over the valley, golden light reflected off Aru's scales. Eleanor looked around her small farm, the quiet fields now marked by scorch lines from the battle. She realized something. She was no longer just a farm girl. She was the protector of a being that could change the course of the galaxy. Together, she and Aru had survived the first attack, and somehow they would survive the next. Eleanor looked up at the sky, where the last ships disappeared into the clouds, and whispered a promise. "We will be ready. Whatever comes, we fight together." And far above the clouds, unseen by human eyes, the Emperor's fleet regrouped, its lights glowing ominously. The hunt had only begun, and the fate of the dragon heir, and the galaxy itself, rested in the hands of a simple farm girl and her extraordinary companion. The sun had barely risen over the valley when the hum of engines filled the air again. Eleanor ran outside, clutching Aru tightly. The baby dragon, now grown larger and more powerful than ever, flapped its wings, sending gusts of wind that whipped through the fields. The ground trembled as the fleet returned, thousands of ships, bigger and more menacing than before, stretching across the horizon like a dark metallic storm. Eleanor's heart pounded so hard she thought it might burst. She had never seen anything like this in her life. Aru's eyes glowed bright gold, and a low roar vibrated from its chest, echoing across the valley. Eleanor felt the dragon's power resonating through her own body, a strange but comforting warmth that strengthened her resolve. "We can do this," she whispered, though her voice trembled. "We have to." She climbed onto Aru's back, holding on tightly as the dragon spread its massive wings. With a single powerful leap, they soared into the sky. The wind tore at her hair, and the world below fell away, replaced by clouds and the vast expanse of space that seemed to stretch endlessly. The Emperor's fleet immediately opened fire. Beams of blue and green energy streaked toward them, lighting up the clouds and sky. Eleanor gritted her teeth, clutching Aru as the dragon twisted and turned with incredible speed, dodging the beams with agility far beyond what she could comprehend. The air smelled of ozone and burning metal, and every time Aru's wings flapped, a shockwave rippled across the valley below. Eleanor had never felt fear like this, but she also felt something stronger: determination. They were protecting the dragon heir, and failure was not an option. Aru roared, and from its mouth came a stream of blue fire that collided with the enemy ships. The beams of energy that struck the dragon melted harmlessly away, deflected by a glowing shield that surrounded it like liquid light. Eleanor held her arms out, feeling the heat and power of Aru's flames. She realized with awe that this was no ordinary dragon. The dragon heart, sealed within Aru, was awakening, its energy flowing through every scale, every wing beat, and even into her own hands. The Emperor's flagship, enormous and bristling with weapons, moved to the center of the battle. Its cannons fired concentrated energy beams, attempting to overwhelm Aru. Eleanor shouted over the roar of the engines, "Be careful, Aru! Watch out!" But the baby dragon was not afraid. It spiraled upward, twisting around beams of energy, its golden eyes fixed on the flagship. Then, with a sudden burst, Aru unleashed a wave of energy from its chest, a powerful shock that struck the flagship directly. The ship shuddered violently, alarms blaring across the fleet, and one by one, smaller vessels scattered, their formations breaking. Eleanor held on as the wind whipped past her face. She could feel every movement of Aru, every flap, every dive, every twist in the air. It was like they were connected, their thoughts and instincts aligned. The battle raged around them, clouds filled with streaks of energy and flashes of fire. Lightning danced across the sky, reflecting in the dragon's scales. Eleanor realized that this was no ordinary fight. This was survival, a test of courage and unity. Together, she and Aru were more than they seemed. The Emperor's voice boomed across the battlefield, amplified by his fleet's technology. "You cannot defeat me. Surrender the dragon heir." Eleanor clenched her fists, shouting back, "Never! We will protect you." Aru responded with a high-pitched, fierce cry, its roar shaking the very clouds. It dove straight at the flagship again, wings flaring, releasing another wave of energy that sent the enemy fleet spinning out of control. Smaller ships collided, creating explosions that lit up the sky like fireworks, and the ground below trembled with the force of the battle. For a moment, Eleanor thought they might not survive. The Emperor's fleet was relentless, sending wave after wave of attacks. But Aru was not alone. Every beat of its wings, every pulse of the dragon heart, seemed to grow stronger, stronger than even the Emperor anticipated. The baby dragon twisted in the air, dodging beams, striking with bursts of fire, and finally, with one mighty leap, it hit the flagship squarely. The ship rocked violently, then fell into the clouds, disappearing from view. The remaining fleet faltered, some retreating, others in disarray. Eleanor looked down at the valley below. Smoke rose from the battlefield, but the farm was safe for now. She leaned close to Aru, hugging its warm, glowing scales. "We did it," she whispered, tears in her eyes. "We really did it." The baby dragon let out a soft hum, curling around her protectively. Eleanor realized, as she looked at the glowing sky and the retreating fleet, that this battle was won not just by power, but by courage, trust, and the bond between them. The sun broke fully over the horizon, shining golden light across the valley. Eleanor and Aru hovered briefly in the sky, victorious but exhausted. She whispered a promise. "No matter what comes next, we'll face it together." And for the first time she felt truly ready. Ready to protect the last dragon heir, ready to face any enemy, ready to change the fate of the galaxy. Far above, beyond human sight, the Emperor's remaining fleet regrouped, but Eleanor did not fear. She had seen Aru's power, felt its courage, and understood that together, they were unstoppable. The battle for the sky had been won, but the war was far from over. The valley was quiet once more. The smoke from the battle had cleared, leaving only the soft morning light filtering through the trees. Eleanor sat on the grassy hill outside her barn, Aru curled at her side, its glowing scales dimming to a gentle, warm blue. The little dragon had grown so much over the past week, yet it still had the innocence of a child in its eyes. Eleanor's heart ached with relief and pride. They had survived the Emperor's fleet, defended the dragon heir, and survived impossible odds together. She ran her hand along Aru's back, feeling the vibrations of its heart, and realized how much they had come to depend on each other, how much they trusted one another. The sun rose higher, bathing the valley in golden light. Eleanor looked around at her farm, the barn, the fields, the trees that had been scorched in places by the battle, and felt a strange sense of peace. This land, simple and quiet, was still theirs. The creatures and crops were safe, and Aru was alive. The little dragon chirped happily, hopping onto Eleanor's lap, nuzzling her cheek. Eleanor laughed softly, tears welling in her eyes. "You did it," she whispered. "We did it together." But the morning was not just peaceful, it was hopeful. The Empire had retreated, and their threat, at least for now, was gone. Eleanor knew the Emperor would return someday, but she also knew they were ready. Aru's power had grown stronger with every moment, and Eleanor herself had changed. She was no longer a simple farm girl. She was a protector, a guardian, a human chosen to stand alongside the last heir of the Dragon Queen. She felt courage she had never known, the kind that comes from standing up for something greater than oneself. Aru chirped and looked toward the sky. Eleanor followed its gaze and saw something she hadn't expected. A shooting star, streaking across the horizon. She smiled. Perhaps it was the Dragon Queen's way of telling them she was proud. Or perhaps it was a symbol of hope for the galaxy. Eleanor whispered softly, "We'll keep your legacy alive, I promise." Aru's wings fluttered gently, as if agreeing. The animals slowly emerged from their hiding places. Chickens clucked, cows wandered back into the fields, and the dog ran in circles, barking happily. Life returned to the valley. It was quiet again, but it was also alive, and Eleanor knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. She hugged Aru tightly and whispered, "No matter what comes, I'll protect you, and you'll protect us." The baby dragon purred softly, a sound that made Eleanor laugh through her tears. That night, Eleanor sat outside under the stars, Aru curled beside her. The sky was calm, and the wind carried a soft, comforting chill. Eleanor thought about all that had happened. The dying Dragon Queen, the Imperial fleet, the battles, and the fear that had gripped her heart. She realized that courage was not the absence of fear, but the strength to face it, to stand up for what is right even when everything seems impossible. She looked at Aru, glowing faintly in the moonlight, and smiled. "We made it," she said softly. "We're ready for anything." As the camera of imagination pans out, Eleanor and Aru look toward the horizon, the valley peaceful and golden. The Empire was still out there, somewhere, but the bond between human and dragon, courage and kindness, had created something stronger than fear. Eleanor's story had become more than a fight for survival. It was a story of hope, love, and bravery. She realized that even the smallest acts of courage could change the course of a galaxy, and that even an ordinary human could do extraordinary things when they believed in something greater than themselves. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying a promise for the future. Eleanor leaned back, closing her eyes for a moment, feeling the warmth of Aru beside her. "The world is bigger than we know," she whispered, "and together we can protect it." Aru chirped, nuzzling her again, and Eleanor laughed softly, tears streaming down her face. This was a happy ending, yes, but also a beginning. A beginning of adventures, courage, and the knowledge that kindness and bravery could shine brighter than any empire or weapon in the galaxy. Eleanor looked into the camera of imagination and spoke directly to the audience. Sometimes, helping even one small creature can change the world. Courage and kindness are more powerful than fear, and even the smallest human can make a difference. Protect what is good, fight for what is right, and never forget that hope is stronger than any darkness. And as the stars sparkled above, Aru flapped its wings softly, glowing in Eleanor's arms. The farm, the valley, and the little dragon's home were safe, for now. Eleanor smiled, taking a deep breath, feeling the warmth of a new day. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing sci-fi adventures. Comment below, what would you do if a dragon trusted you with its life? And remember, even the smallest act of courage can change the universe.